My name's Mark Ratcliffe, and we're back here with Rebecca Doubek, and we're talking about sustainability in Berks County. We kind of left off talking about getting the younger people involved in our area and why aren't they as involved as maybe they could be. I think part of that is we were talking about the colleges are discussing it, and that age group is talking about it. But I think on a broader scale, maybe we don't give our younger people enough reasons or ways to get involved. And recycling, you were talking about a friend of yours that had to scratch and claw to get a recycling program together locally here.
Yes, and she did it in the schools. And, as we were talking about the sort of younger generation, if you will, or this demographic of young people that perhaps don't have the opportunities to be involved or aren't inspired or motivated, that's what I like about the festival. I think the festival, excuse the term, but it's a sexy way to bring that conversation to the table. Yes, there's going to be some great drinks, some fantastic beers from some beautiful organic-based and sustainable breweries, farm-to-table foods, but great live music and really cool things to buy. So personally, if I have to package it like that just to be able to have that conversation, I'm all about it. If I can get someone to pay attention or learn something about how easy it is to recycle in their community or composting for their garden, or you too can make your own great fashions from clothing from Goodwill, real simple things. But I think if you can inspire and reach someone on that level, regardless of their age, then we've done something pretty awesome. And that's, to me, what motivates me to do things like this.
Right. So sustainability in general is not using up your resources. It is
to sustain and protect.
That's right.
For longevity, for the future, so that it's when you sustain something, you give it a life beyond. It's not a finite shelf life. Does that make sense?
Yes. Not using more than you can produce.
Yes.
Is the main part of sustainability. And that goes back around to the recycling of things. That's such an easy discussion that has happened for 20 years, but it still seems to be a tough thing for people to embrace locally here.
When you moved here, Mark, was there recycling in your community? Where you lived at the time?
There was where I lived, yes. Put it in the little cans and put it out on the curb.
See, there wasn't where I lived.
No.
There was not recycling.
Okay.
It came quickly after, and I was, again, moving from Colorado, where it was readily available. I was shocked that the place that I had moved to didn't offer that to its residents and its community, and a little bit outraged, frankly. And I remember calling and asking my local borough, hey, we're getting it. We don't have, it was sort of, but I knew it was in the process, so that I felt better about that. But I couldn't believe that it had taken that long for that conversation to even begin. And then when they did bring it, it was, okay, but it's only plastics labeled 1 and 2. If anything had a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on it, you couldn't recycle it with them. And then it was no certain boxes and things like that. That was also frustrating, because I certainly ended up with a lot more products and plastics that weren't 1 and 2 that I still had to find a place to then recycle myself if I wanted to do that. That, I think, is what diminishes people's inspiration to do things as easy as recycling, because frankly, it's a pain to bundle it all up and stick it in a bag and put it in your back seat and take that. To me, especially if you're a busy family person or you're on the go with a job, that's not your first priority. It just doesn't seem convenient. So I think it's wonderful now that we have these convenient curbside recycling opportunities, and it's as easy as picking up the phone and calling your borough. And I would say, for the most part, most of my neighbors anyway do recycle. But it frustrates the heck out of me when I see that there's someone who doesn't do it when it's so easily available to you. And you and I both know there are people that don't.
Sure. I kind of liken it to driving in really great old historic areas where, for some reason or another, the community has chosen not to keep up those great old buildings.
Yes.
And they've deteriorated.
Right.
And these are buildings that could never be rebuilt today for the cost of what it would take to do that.
Works of art.
And I think the same is very true with our planet, that we need to be conscientious of how we use our planet so that it doesn't get to that point that that's worn out, that we've used all our resources, that now We're trying to figure out how to, and water is a big issue, especially out west.
Yeah, well, that's a huge issue out west. That was water conservation was a big conversation, and part of. I mean, you would, and you know this in California. I mean, if you took a shower or a bath, you saved that bath water because that was going to go in your yard to water your grass, because that was maybe the only time it was going to see a drink of water that week. So there were all kinds of conversations. Water certainly was a resource that was to be cherished and treasured and possibly not always available.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things with sustainability is, the three pillars: people, planet, and profit. That profitability end really means saving money, figuring out a way to not spend as much as you're spending on electric, on water, on trash, so on and so forth.
And that's the carbon footprint thing. I think that, again, that's a trendy thing to say. And I don't know that we always make the connection for people as to why they need to do that. Oh, yeah, reduce your carbon footprint. Well, why? Why does that matter? Well, it matters because the planet that you're living on is taking a huge impact when you choose to ignore that the choices that you're making for you, your family, and people in your community, that it's impacting your planet in a negative way, an irreparable way. That is the thing I don't think people connect to. That's sure, if you will. And I think that gets lost on a lot of people because, again, if it's not convenient, if I can't see how it's impacting my world. And again, I think the thing for me that was a very powerful part of making that connection was having children, because now all of a sudden when I'm long gone, what am I leaving my children? What kind of planet and place am I leaving for my kids?
Well, and ultimately we need to get to the point that sustainability becomes an easy thing for us to do.
Yes.
Whether houses are built with some sort of rain gathering system that now you can use it to water your yard with, that it has some sort of solar component or wind component for energy, that you can get to the point where you're actually adding energy back into the grid instead of continually taking from it, where the utensils and the way you're living and eating, that you're
the way you're planting your garden, the way that you're choosing plants to go. I mean, it's such a wide-reaching, larger, conversation. But I think when you start to encourage people to think that way, then you can start to connect the dots. And I think that's why the festival is a great way to connect the dots for people. Bring some of those resources like Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Group and people from Permacultivate in the city of Reading, people that are doing things, that are living this idea of sustainability in a powerful way, and that it's something available to all of us. I was so excited to talk to Anne-Marie McMahon this weekend. Anne-Marie has a small boutique independent nursery just close to her home that she runs on the weekends. And Anne-Marie's passion is really teaching people about native plants and why it's important to put those in your yard, why it's important to put them in your landscape. She also particularly loves native edible plants. So now there's an even different element to it. And why it's important that those types of things be considered when you're planting a garden or putting things in your front yard. So she sells these great herbs and plants in her little nursery. She's going to be part of our festival on July 19th, and she's going to do a demonstration and discuss and help educate people on how easy that is, but how powerful that is.
Sure. Thinking about how we can get everybody engaged in sustainability, I think it is going to be driven largely by bigger companies.
Yes.
And we're lucky enough to have BMW coming out. I was able to test drive their new i3.
Awesome.
Brand new, all electric car.
That's awesome.
So cool. It drives like a dream. You would not believe it.
But you just nailed something on the head there. It's cool sustainability.
Cool
right.
sustainability,
So that's a
exactly.
difference, because I think sometimes that's the other thing for young people particularly. Is it a Birkenstock? Is it a, sort of unkempt looking person who perhaps doesn't believe in showering or shaving their armpits, whatever it is? That's a stereotype, I think.
Yeah.
That's your crunchy Colorado, sort of.
And today maybe it's Tom's.
Correct. And that's a little hipper and cooler.
Yes.
But again, I think it isn't always that. I think that, we all come in different shapes, sizes, and we all do our part differently. So I think that that's what's great about that BMW, is that it's a cool way to have that conversation.
Absolutely. And that's actually the fun part of it, is figuring out a way to be sustainable and cool and fun. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish with the festival. We've got live music coming out. We've got
Sustainable beer. There is sustainable beer.
Philadelphia
Who knew?
Distilling has an organic vodka, and
stop
they are
it.
coming to help support the effort.
I'm so excited
which is
about
so
that.
cool.
Very.
Yeah.
And Phoebe Kanakis of Phoebe's Pure Foods has got some fantastic syrups that she does, that she infuses all these wonderful herbs and things with. She's just a magician in the kitchen, as we all know. And so she is going to have some of her syrups there for things like vodka and gin. And also she makes these rubs that she does with these beautiful herbs and things. So people like Phoebe and other elements to that just make it yummy. And drinks are amazing. And again, encourage people to hang around and have a great drink and some great food and have the conversation.
And it's summertime, and we're encouraging everybody to ride their bikes out there. And
bring your own water bottle, because we're
and-
not going to sell plastic disposable water bottles.
BYOWB.
Correct. We will have clean water stations for
Right.
people that want to bring their own water bottles, which I think is cool.
Absolutely.
I had this vision of having those really cool stainless steel tumblers with the engraved logo, but that's a little past our budget this year. But that's on my list for
Yes,
next year.
yes.
But bring your own bottle, and we'll have some bottles that can be purchased. But again, little things like that, just little elements and details, I think are important. To me, it's all about the details.
Yeah, and I think we're going to make a strong point to show how fun and easy doing good things for people, planet, and your pocketbook can be.
I agree.
Well, thank you. We're going to wrap it up here today. Again, my name's Mark Ratcliffe.
Thanks
here
for
with
having me.
Rebecca. And we look forward to seeing you again in a month.